Hello, everyone. In the high-stakes world of global manufacturing, relying on gut feeling is no longer an option. Decisions involving millions in CAPEX require rigorous engineer-grade justification. Join me in this episode as we dismantle the Smart Industry Readiness Index, SIRI, the framework that has become the internationally recognized ISO standard for digitalization. We will move beyond the buzzwords and dive into the 3816 matrix, exploring how SIRI evaluates your facility across process, technology, and organization. You'll learn how to use the tier framework to create a mathematically justified list of priorities, effectively eliminating internal politics about where to invest your budget. However, we won't shy away from the challenges. I discuss why SIRI is considered the technocrat's choice compared to softer models like ADMA, and I address the hidden costs and the dangerous trap of chasing bands without business value. If you're looking for a way to benchmark your factory against thousands of peers and present an undeniable case to your CFO, this episode provides the roadmap you need. Tune in to convert vague digital ambitions into a concrete engineering strategy.
Okay, imagine for a second you're the CTO of a massive manufacturing company.
Right.
You've got the board breathing down your neck, and they're all demanding digital transformation.
They just read about it in Forbes.
Exactly. They want it now, and they don't really care how. So you look at your portfolio. You have, 3 factories. One in Germany, running since the 90s, super reliable, but maybe a little analog.
Okay.
One in Vietnam that just opened, so it's brand new. And one in Mexico that's somewhere in between.
And the board is asking that inevitable question.
Okay.
Which one is smarter? And where exactly do we put this next $10 million to get the best return on investment?
Right. And, 10, maybe even 5 years ago, you'd just ask the plant manager. You'd run that decision on pure intuition.
You'd say, well, Hans in Stuttgart, he feels like he needs new robots.
Yeah. But today, in this kind of high-stakes world, intuition just doesn't cut it. A decision with millions in CAPEX capital expenditure, it needs rigorous, defensible data.
I have a gut feeling is a great way to get yourself fired.
It really is.
You need a ruler, a standard. And that is exactly where our topic for today comes in. We are doing a deep dive into SIRI.
The Smart Industry Readiness Index. And before anyone starts checking their iPhone, no. We are not talking about the voice assistant.
Please do not ask this SIRI to set a timer for your pasta.
It will not work.
No. And it won't play your favorite playlist. This SIRI is what people in the industry call the technocrat's choice. It's effectively the ISO standard for digitalization.
So it's a framework.
It's a framework designed to take that really fuzzy, buzzword-heavy concept of Industry 4.0 and just force it into hard, cold mathematics.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to tear apart the documentation on SIRI. We want to understand how these huge global companies use this ruler to compare, say, a plant in Stuttgart versus one in Ho Chi Minh City.
And we're going to look at the 3816 matrix that powers it and something called the tier framework that helps you actually spend your money wisely.
It's a fascinating shift, isn't it? We're watching the industry move from, I think we should buy this robot because it looks cool,
to the data proves we're in the bottom quartile for connectivity compared to our peers. So we really have no choice but to upgrade. It's a whole different conversation.
So let's unpack this. Where did SIRI even come from? This didn't just pop up on some tech blog. It has a very serious pedigree.
It does. It was born out of the Singapore Economic Development Board, the EDB. They worked with 2C.
The certification people?
The high priests of certification and safety, along with some major tech players. And then, and this is crucial, it got the stamp of approval from the World Economic Forum.
That Singapore connection is really interesting. When you think about Singapore high labor costs, very little land.
They can't afford to be inefficient.
Not at all. They have to maximize every single square foot of manufacturing space. So it makes perfect sense that they'd be the ones to want a periodic table for efficiency.
That's actually the exact analogy the source text uses. A periodic table of tangible elements. And that's what really sets it apart from other models. If you look at something like ADMA, for instance, which is big in Europe.
Right, the Advanced Manufacturing Model, ADMA.
Correct. ADMA is very focused on the soft stuff.
The culture.
The culture, the philosophy, transformation, sustainability, the whole eco-factory idea. It's valuable, don't get me wrong, but it's a bit like a philosophy class. It asks, are we thinking the right way?
Whereas SIRI is the engineering schematic.
It is unapologetically technical.
Yeah.
It's there to give an engineer-grade evaluation with extreme granularity.
It's the difference between asking, do we have an innovative culture versus is the latency between our sensor and our server more than 50 milliseconds?
Exactly. It breaks down that big nebulous smart manufacturing concept into specific measurable parts. You can get past the buzzwords and actually measure the physics of your factory.
I really like that periodic table analogy. It makes it feel manageable. So let's get into the gears of this thing. The sources talk about a 3-8-16 matrix. Sounds like a bike lock combination.
It does a bit. It's basically the core architecture. It sits on top of this broader framework they call learn, evaluate, architect, deliver. But the 3-8-16 is where the rubber really meets the road.
So what's the 3?
The 3 represents the fundamental building blocks of any industry: process, technology, and organization.
Okay, that feels robust. You can't just have tech. You need a process for it and, people in an organization to manage it.
Right. But SIRI forces you to break those down. Those 3 blocks get split into 8 pillars, and those pillars then split into 16 specific dimensions.
And that's the 16.
That's the 16. And here's the key to the whole system. Each one of those 16 dimensions gets a score on a band from 0 to 5.
With 0 being what, we use pen and paper and maybe some smoke signals?
Pretty much. And 5 is the factory runs itself, predicts the future, and makes me coffee.
I want the band 5 factory.
We all do. But yeah, band 0 is usually undefined or completely manual. Band 5 is future-ready, fully adaptive, autonomous systems.
Okay, so let's dive into these dimensions because this is where that engineer-grade part really comes alive. Let's start with the first block, process. This isn't just about, do we have a process, is it?
No, not at all. And this is where SIR often surprises people. It focuses really heavily on integration. They measure vertical integration and horizontal integration.
I always mix these two up. Remind me again, vertical is inside the factory walls.
Yeah, think of vertical as floor to ceiling. Does the machine on the ground floor talk to the control system, which talks to the manufacturing execution system, which talks to the big ERP system at the top? It's the whole data stack.
So if I have a super smart CNC machine, but I have to literally copy the production data off its little screen and type it into Excel to email to finance.
That's a fail on vertical integration, a huge broken link in the chain. That's a low band score. Now, horizontal integration is end-to-end. It's your supply chain. Does your ERP talk to your supplier system? When you run out of steel, does your system automatically trigger an order with the steel plant?
Or does someone have to notice, panic, and send a frantic email?
That's a low score. Exactly.
Good. The notes also mention product lifecycle integration. That's the link from design to production, right?
Yes, and this is such a huge pain point in the industry. You see these companies where R&D is working in, advanced 3D CAD, doing incredible modeling, but then to actually get it built, they print out a 2D drawing and walk it over to the machinist.
Which just defeats the whole purpose of the 3D model.
Completely. The data flow is broken. SIRI punishes that score heavily because you lose all that digital richness the second you hit print.
That's a digital break. Okay, let's move to the second block, which the sources say is SIRI's real stronghold. Technology. I think this is where the framework gets really, really clever.
It does. It splits technology into 3 distinct layers: the shop floor, the enterprise, and this is where the facility.
We'll get to facility in a sec. That's often overlooked. But for shop floor and enterprise, SIRI separates automation from connectivity from intelligence.
Doing, talking, and thinking.
I love that. Doing, talking, thinking, because you can be amazing at doing, but just awful at talking.
And that is the classic islands of automation problem. You might have a brand new $10 million robotic arm. It's fantastic at doing, so it gets a high automation score. But if it's air-gapped, if it's not connected to the network, its connectivity score is a big fat 0.
And if it's not connected, it can't feed data to any kind of AI, so its intelligence score, the thinking, is also 0.
Exactly. And the reverse happens at the enterprise level. You walk into a corporate HQ, and they've got these beautiful business intelligence dashboards, big screens with charts for the CEO. They score really high on enterprise intelligence.
But where's that data coming from?
That's the catch. If it's being manually typed in by a guy named Steve from a clipboard at the end of the week, your shop floor connectivity is garbage.
You have a smart brain attached to a numb body.
Perfectly put. SIRI exposes the fake smart factory. It stops you from hiding behind a pretty dashboard.
That is a massive aha moment. It forces you to look at the plumbing, not just the fancy gold-plated fixture.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned the facility layer. Most audits look at the production line, the machines making the widgets. Why is SIRI looking at the building itself?
Well, because energy is money. You could have the most hyper-efficient robot in the world, But if your HVAC system is cooling an empty warehouse because the timer is set to some 1995 standard, you are just bleeding cash.
So it checks for things like lighting, automation, cooling, security.
Yeah, it identifies those big operational leaks that these product-focused models just completely miss. It treats the whole factory as an organism, not just a collection of tools.
Okay, process and tech are covered. The third leg of the stool is organization. I'm guessing this is the human factor.
It is. And honestly, this is where so many transformations fall apart. You can buy the best tech in the world, but if your team doesn't get it or can't use it, it's just a very expensive paperweight. So SIRI assesses talent readiness and structure and management.
So it asks questions like, does the CEO actually have a digital strategy? And on the other end, can the operators on the floor actually use an iPad?
It's a total reality check. I've seen assessments where the technology score is a 4, future ready, but the talent readiness is a 1.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It is. It means you've way overinvested in tools your people can't use. It flags a massive training gap that no amount of software updates is ever going to fix.
Okay, so let's fast forward. You've brought in the certified assessors, you've done the workshops, you have your 3, 8, 16 matrix all filled out. You know you're a band 2 in connectivity and a band 4 in automation. Now what? You just have a big pile of numbers.
And that is the common trap. Analysis paralysis. You have all this data, you know everything that's wrong, but you don't know what to fix first.
Right. Where do you start?
And that is where the tier framework comes in. This is, and I'm not exaggerating, it's the killer feature of the whole SIRI ecosystem.
TIER. Let's break that down.
Okay, so it's a prioritization matrix. T just stands for today's state. That's the score we just calculated.
Simple enough. That's the baseline. You are here.
I stands for impact to bottom line. And this is where it gets really strategic. SIRE weights the different dimensions based on your specific industry.
Because what a pharmaceutical company cares about is totally different from a guy making, I don't know, plastic bottle caps.
A huge difference. If you're in pharma, quality is everything. It is non-negotiable. If you screw up the mix, people could die or you get sued for billions. So SIRI puts a massive multiplier on all the quality dimensions.
You can't afford to be a band 1 in quality.
Absolutely not. But
Yeah.
if you're that contract manufacturer making bottle caps,
Margins are razor thin.
exactly. Volume is high, speed is everything, efficiency is king. So SIRI tells you, look, ignore that fancy predictive quality AI for now. Focus on your throughput speed. It stops you from fixing things that don't actually make you money.
That is incredibly useful. It filters out all the nice-to-haves. Okay, next is E, essential business objectives.
That one's pretty simple. It's just aligning with your company's KPIs for that year. If the CEO's big push is to cut carbon emissions, you prioritize the facility layer. But the R is the ultimate weapon.
References.
Yes, the official SIRI assessment database, because SIRI has been run on thousands of companies all over the world. The EDB and TUV-SUD have this massive data set.
So it lets you benchmark. It's not just you against yourself.
It lets you weaponize peer pressure. It's amazing. Imagine you're that CTO. You go to the CFO and say, I need $5 million for IoT sensors. And the CFO says,
No, too expensive. We're cutting costs. It's the standard conversation every Tuesday.
right. But now, imagine the CTO walks in with a SIRI report and says, here's the data. Compared to 500 other semiconductor manufacturers, we are in the top 10% for automation, but we are in the bottom 20% for connectivity.
That completely changes the conversation. It's not, I want a cool toy. It's, we are actively losing the race.
It just eliminates the internal politics. It's a mathematically justified reason for investment. You're not arguing opinions anymore. You're arguing your relative position in the market. That unlocks the checkbook.
I can see why the World Economic Forum is so high on this. It turns this qualitative mess of we need to be smarter into a quantitative, actionable roadmap. But I have to play devil's advocate. This all sounds really expensive.
It is.
This isn't some SurveyMonkey link you email to the staff on a Friday.
No, and the source material is very clear about this. An official SIRI assessment, an OSA, is not a do-it-yourself project. You need certified SIRI assessors. It takes days of workshops, site visits, interviews with everyone.
And a bill in the thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars per site.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Which brings up a major limitation for, small and medium-sized enterprises. If you're a machine shop with 50 employees, a full SIRI assessment is total overkill.
It's like using a satellite to find your car keys.
Exactly. The source even says that for smaller companies, the cost of the diagnosis might outweigh the value. Don't burn your whole budget just figuring out what's wrong and have nothing left for the cure.
So they recommend starting with self-assessments or maybe lighter models.
Yeah, start with a self-assessment or a framework like ADMA.
There's another psychological trap mentioned in the notes. They call it band obsession.
Oh, this is the gamification problem. It happens all the time. Executives see they're a band 2 in something, and they immediately scream, "Get me to band 3."
It's just human nature. You want the A plus say. You want the high score.
Right. But SIRI is actually designed to tell you that sometimes band 5 is not the goal.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, take facility automation. Band 5 might mean you have sensors tracking individual employee movements to adjust the lighting in real time.
Wow.
Yeah. But if you run a low-volume, high-craft wood shop, that tech will cost you way more than it ever saves you in electricity. Staying at a band 2, which might just be a simple timer, could be the absolute perfect business decision for you.
So you can win the game of SIRE and still lose at business.
You can. You have to couple the score with the ROI. Don't just chase the band to make a slide deck look good.
And one more big criticism that stood out to me, technocentrism.
It's a mouthful, but it's a really valid critique. SIRE is an engineer's tool, so it looks for engineering solutions. It might see a bottleneck on your line and say, you need a complex manufacturing execution system to schedule this better.
When in reality, maybe you just need to move two desks a bit closer together.
Or just use a simple Kanban card system. SIRE has a bias towards digital solutions. It assumes the answer is always a computer, but sometimes the answer is just simple lean management. It doesn't value simplicity as much as it values connectivity.
That's a great point. Don't digitize a bad process, just fix the process first. And quickly, what about security? We live in the age of ransomware. Does a high SIRE score mean I'm hack-proof?
No, absolutely not. And this is critical for anyone in IT listening. SIRE measures connectivity and readiness. It does not measure cyber resilience in any real depth.
So it tells you the door is open.
It tells you your door is open and able to let people in.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you if the bouncer is actually doing his job.
So you need to pair this with something else.
You have to. The sources strongly recommend pairing a SIRI assessment with a dedicated cyber audit, like IEC 62443. SIRI tells you if you can connect. The audit tells you if it's safe to do so.
Don't mistake connectivity for security.
Never.
So, pulling this all together, SIRI isn't a magic wand. It's a ruler. A very expensive, very sophisticated, but very accurate ruler.
That's the best way to frame it. It doesn't tell you the story of your company. It gives you the hard data you need to write the next chapter without, going bankrupt.
It takes the, I hope this works, out of a $10 million decision.
It converts that vague ambition into a concrete, prioritized engineering roadmap. It tells you exactly where you stand, and maybe more importantly, where your competitors are already beating you.
Which brings us to our final thought. We live in this world that is just obsessed with metrics. We count our steps, our calories, our sleep scores, and now we're scoring the maturity of our factories. But it does raise a question for you to think about. In a corporate world so obsessed with these digital maturity scores, at what point does the cost of measuring progress start to outweigh the cost of actually making progress? Are we measuring to improve, or are we just measuring to compare?
That is the million-dollar question, or in this case, the multi-million-dollar CAPEX question.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.